The soft morning breeze carried the salty scent of the ocean across the research vessel as it gently rocked on the waves off the western Australian coast. The sun had just begun to peek over the horizon, painting the sky in beautiful shades of orange and pink. For the experienced marine biologist aboard, this was supposed to be just another day of studying dolphin behavior, but fate had different plans. The scientist had spent the last 3 years of her life following and documenting this particular pod of bottlenose dolphins. Each dolphin had its own personality, but one female, the leader of the pod, stood out from the rest. The local fishermen had given her a special name, calling her the guardian of the bay because she often swam close to their boats, almost as if checking on their safety. That March morning started like any other. The research team had set out early, equipped with their usual gear. Underwater microphones to record dolphin calls, cameras to capture their behavior, and detailed logs to document their movements. The air was crisp, and the sea was relatively calm, perfect conditions for dolphin watching. But something was different today. The pod wasn't in their usual feeding grounds where they typically spent their mornings hunting for fish. Instead, they were gathered in an unusual location, several miles from their normal route. More intriguingly, their behavior seemed off. They weren't displaying their usual playful morning activities. The guardian of the bay, in particular, caught the scientist's attention. Her swimming pattern had changed dramatically. Instead of leading the pod in their typical formation, she had broken away and was swimming in peculiar circles. Through binoculars, the researcher observed how the other dolphins seemed to be taking turns joining her before swimming back to the main group. The research team's curiosity piqued when they noticed how the pod was communicating differently too. Their underwater microphones picked up an unusual pattern of clicks and whistles, sounds they hadn't documented in their 3 years of studying these magnificent creatures. It was almost as if they were trying to tell them something. As the research vessel carefully approached the area, the morning sun now fully risen and glistening off the water's surface, none of them could have predicted what they were about to discover. The Guardian's strange circular swimming wasn't random at all. She was protecting something, or rather someone. The experienced marine biologist had seen dolphins display protective behavior before, usually towards their own calves or injured pod members. But this was different. This was something that would challenge everything they thought they knew about dolphin intelligence and their relationship with humans. Through the crystal-clear waters of the Australian coast, they began to make out a small shape in the center of the Guardian's circles. At first, they thought it might be an injured seal or perhaps another marine mammal. But as they edged closer, their hearts nearly stopped. What they saw in the water would not only change their lives forever, but would soon capture the attention of the entire world. The research team stood frozen at the ship's rail, their scientific equipment temporarily forgotten as they tried to process what they were seeing. The Guardian's circles weren't just random movements, they were deliberate, protective, and possibly the only thing standing between life and death for what they had just discovered floating in those vast waters. The marine biologist quickly grabbed her camera, knowing that what was unfolding before them needed to be documented, not just for science, but for humanity. Sometimes the most extraordinary discoveries happen when you least expect them, and this morning was about to become one of those remarkable moments that remind us just how little we truly understand about the incredible intelligence and compassion of the creatures we share our planet with. The research vessel's engine hummed quietly as they drew closer to the peculiar scene. The Guardian's circular swimming had created a perfect ring in the ocean, like a protective barrier against the vast blue waters. The rest of the dolphin pod kept a watchful distance, their dorsal fins breaking the surface in a coordinated pattern that seemed almost like a synchronized dance. Through the crystal-clear Australian waters, the marine biologist finally got a clear view of what the Guardian was protecting. Time seemed to freeze as her experienced eyes registered what she was seeing, a small human figure bobbing gently in the waves. The child was wearing what appeared to be a bright orange life jacket, though it was clearly waterlogged and failing to keep them properly afloat. "There's a child in the water," she shouted to her team, her voice carrying the urgency of the situation. The research crew sprang into action, their scientific observations temporarily forgotten in the face of this emergency. But before they could launch their rescue boat, they noticed something remarkable. The Guardian's swimming pattern wasn't just random circles. The dolphin had positioned herself in such a way that her movements created a gentle current, helping to keep the child's head above water. Even more astounding, whenever a wave threatened to push the child under, the guardian would adjust her swimming angle, using her body to break the wave's force. It was as if she understood exactly what needed to be done to keep the young survivor alive. The research team watched in amazement as other dolphins from the pod took turns swimming alongside their leader, almost like they were providing support or taking shifts. Their clicks and whistles had changed too, becoming more frequent and intense, as if they were communicating about their rescue mission. Through their powerful zoom lens, they could see the child was unconscious but still breathing. The life jacket, though waterlogged, had managed to provide just enough buoyancy. But it was the guardian's careful movements that had truly made the difference. She had created a safe zone in the middle of the vast ocean, protecting the child not only from the waves, but also from any curious predators that might have been drawn to the area. The marine biologist had studied dolphin behavior for over 15 years, but nothing in her research had prepared her for this. She'd read historical accounts of dolphins helping humans in distress, but seeing it happen in real time was something entirely different. This wasn't just instinct, this was intelligent, purposeful behavior that showed remarkable understanding and compassion. As they prepared their rescue equipment, they noticed how the guardian would occasionally swim closer to the child, gently nudging them to maintain the right position in the water. The precision of her movements was incredible. She was close enough to help, but careful not to cause any harm with her powerful body. The morning sun, now high in the sky, revealed more details of the scene. The child's clothes suggested they hadn't been in the water for just a few minutes. This had likely been going on for hours, which meant the guardian and her pod had probably been protecting them all this time, taking turns, staying vigilant, refusing to abandon someone in need. The research team quickly documented everything with their cameras, knowing that this extraordinary event would need to be shared with the world. But more importantly, they knew they had to act fast. The child, though protected by their unexpected guardian angel, needed immediate medical attention. What they were witnessing wasn't just a rescue, it was a moment that would challenge everything we thought we knew about the relationship between humans and dolphins. The guardian's actions went beyond basic animal instinct. This was a display of intelligence, empathy, and determination that would soon capture the attention of people around the globe and change our understanding of these magnificent creatures forever. With shaking hands but a steady voice, the marine biologist grabbed her radio and called the Coast Guard. "This is research vessel Pacific Explorer. We have a child in distress," she reported, her words clear and urgent. The coordinates were quickly relayed, and the rescue operation sprang into motion. Every second counted now, but they had an unexpected ally on their side, the Guardian and her pod of dolphins. The Coast Guard's response was immediate. Within minutes, the distinctive thump-thump of helicopter rotors could be heard in the distance. But this presented a new challenge. How would the dolphins react to the noise and disturbance? Would they flee, leaving the child vulnerable to the ocean's dangers? The research team watched in amazement as something remarkable happened. Instead of swimming away from the approaching noise, the Guardian adjusted her strategy. She tightened her protective circle, creating an even smaller safe zone around the child. Other dolphins from her pod spread out in a wider circle, their bodies clearly visible from above, almost as if they were marking the spot for the approaching rescue team. The helicopter grew larger in the sky, its downdraft creating ripples across the water's surface. The research team held their breath, knowing these next few moments would be crucial. The Guardian, showing incredible adaptability, shifted her swimming pattern to counteract the water disturbance created by the helicopter's powerful rotors. She was actually helping to maintain the stability of the child in the water, even under these new challenging conditions. As the rescue diver prepared to drop into the water, the pod of dolphins did something that left even the experienced research team speechless. They created a clear pathway through their formation, almost like they were directing the diver to the exact spot where help was needed. It was as if they understood exactly what was happening and were actively participating in the rescue effort. The diver hit the water with a splash, and the Guardian's behavior changed again. Instead of continuing her tight circles, she backed away slightly, giving the rescuer space to work while still maintaining a protective presence nearby. Her pod members remained in their wider circle, creating a barrier against any potential threats that might be drawn to the activity. The research team's cameras whirred, capturing every moment of this incredible collaboration between humans and dolphins. The rescue diver later reported that he'd never experienced anything like it in his 15 years of service. As he secured the child with a rescue harness, the Guardian stayed close, her powerful presence a reassuring force in the churning waters. The moment the diver gave the signal, the rescue cable began to lift them both from the water. The pod of dolphins began making excited clicking sounds, their calls captured by the research team's underwater microphones. It was almost as if they were encouraging the rescue, understanding that their young charge was finally heading to safety. But the Guardian's work wasn't done yet. As the helicopter began to move towards the shore with its precious cargo, she and several pod members actually swam alongside the research vessel as it followed the rescue operation. Their presence felt like an honor guard, making sure their human friend made it safely to land. The research team continued documenting everything, knowing they were witnessing something that would change our understanding of dolphin behavior forever. The level of coordination between the pod members, their ability to adapt to the rescue operation, and their clear understanding of the situation defied conventional explanations. As they approached the shoreline, where emergency medical teams were waiting, the Guardian and her pod finally turned back to deeper waters. But before they left, they performed a series of spectacular leaps, as if celebrating the successful rescue. The research team watched them go, with tears in their eyes, knowing they had just witnessed one of the most remarkable examples of interspecies cooperation ever documented. At the local hospital's pediatric unit, doctors worked quickly to treat their young patient. The child, a bright-eyed 10-year-old with a love for marine life, had been through an ordeal that would seem unbelievable if it hadn't been so well documented. As warmth slowly returned to their body, an incredible story began to unfold. The previous day had started as a perfect family fishing trip. The weather was beautiful, the sea was calm, and the family's small fishing boat had set out early in the morning. The child had been wearing their life jacket, just as they'd been taught, sitting safely in the boat while their father and uncle focused on the fishing lines. But the ocean can be unpredictable. A sudden wave had rocked the boat unexpectedly. In a heart-stopping moment, the child had lost their balance and fallen overboard. Despite their family's immediate attempts to reach them, the strong current had quickly swept them away from the boat. The family's frantic search had lasted hours, with the Coast Guard joining in, but the vast expanse of the ocean had seemed to swallow their loved one completely. The doctors were amazed by the child's condition. Despite spending nearly 6 hours in the water, they were remarkably stable. The combination of the life jacket and, most incredibly, the dolphin's protection had prevented the worst from happening. The child's body temperature had dropped, but not to the devastating levels usually seen in lengthy ocean exposure. As their strength returned, the young survivor shared fragments of memories from their time in the water. They remembered being terrified at first, watching their family's boat disappear in the distance as the current pulled them away. They recalled the exhaustion of trying to stay afloat, even with the life jacket. But then, something extraordinary had happened. "I wasn't alone anymore," the child told the nurses, their eyes lighting up despite their fatigue. "I felt something big swimming around me, and I was scared at first. But then I realized they were protecting me. They stayed with me the whole time, keeping me safe." The medical team was particularly impressed by how the dolphin's circling behavior had helped prevent hypothermia. The constant movement of the water, created by the Guardian's swimming pattern, had actually helped maintain a slightly warmer pocket of water around the child. It was as if the dolphin had somehow known exactly what to do to keep them alive. The young survivor's family had been overjoyed to receive the call that their child had been found alive. When they learned about the dolphin's role in the rescue, they were overwhelmed with gratitude. The child's grandmother, wiping tears from her eyes, shared stories she'd heard in her youth about dolphins protecting humans at sea. "I never thought such tales were real," she said, holding her grandchild's hand tightly. "Now I know those stories were true all along." Recovery in the hospital continued steadily. Child psychologists were amazed by how the presence of the dolphins had helped prevent severe trauma from the experience. Instead of being terrified of the water, the young survivor spoke about their time with the dolphins with wonder and appreciation. They had felt safe, protected, and somehow knew that help would come. The attending physician, who had treated many drowning cases over his 20-year career, was astounded. "In all my years of emergency medicine, I've never seen anything like this," he shared with the research team. "The level of protection these dolphins provided, it's beyond anything we've encountered before. Without their intervention, we would be telling a very different story today." As the child grew stronger each day, their story began spreading throughout the hospital, then the local community, and soon across the entire country. It wasn't just a tale of survival, it was a powerful reminder of the extraordinary connections possible between humans and marine mammals, a testament to the intelligence and compassion that exists in our oceans. Back at the Marine Research Center, the team worked day and night analyzing the incredible footage they had captured. The underwater recordings revealed something that left even the most experienced marine biologists speechless. The Guardian's behavior wasn't just instinctive, it was carefully planned and coordinated with her entire pod. "Look at this pattern," the lead researcher pointed out to her colleagues, replaying the video for the 100th time. The footage showed how the Guardian had positioned herself at precisely the right angle to create a gentle current around the child. This wasn't random, it was deliberate. The dolphin had somehow understood that this movement would help keep the young survivor's head above water. The underwater microphones had picked up something even more fascinating. Throughout the entire rescue, the pod was communicating with a series of clicks and whistles that the researchers had never heard before. When they analyzed these sounds in their lab, they discovered that the dolphins had developed a unique pattern of calls specifically for this situation. "It's like they created their own rescue protocol," one of the scientists explained, pointing to the sound wavelengths on his computer screen. "See how these calls change when they switch positions. They're coordinating with each other, taking shifts to maintain their energy levels while keeping constant watch over the child." The team's analysis revealed that the pod had created a sophisticated rotation system. While the Guardian maintained her close protective circle, other dolphins would take turns swimming in wider circles, watching for potential threats, and occasionally bringing small fish into the protected area, as if they were trying to provide food for their own charge. What amazed the researchers most was the dolphins' ability to adapt their behavior when the rescue helicopter arrived. The recording showed how the pod adjusted their formation to account for the water disturbance caused by the helicopter's downdraft. This kind of problem-solving ability suggested a level of intelligence that exceeded even the most optimistic scientific estimates. "We've always known dolphins are smart," the lead researcher shared with visiting colleagues, "but this goes beyond anything we've documented before. They didn't just protect the child, they created a complete survival system. They regulated water temperature, kept predators away, and even tried to provide nourishment. It's extraordinary." The team's findings were backed up by the medical data from the hospital. The child's survival had defied the usual odds for prolonged ocean exposure. The dolphins' circling behavior had created a microenvironment that helped prevent severe hypothermia. Their constant movement had generated slightly warmer water pockets, while their bodies blocked the worst of the cold ocean currents. Even more intriguing was the psychological aspect. The research team consulted with marine mammal experts worldwide, who confirmed that the pod's behavior showed clear signs of empathy. The Guardian hadn't just recognized a creature in distress, she had understood exactly what a human child needed to survive and had mobilized her entire pod to provide it. The underwater cameras had captured countless moments of gentle interaction, times when the Guardian would softly nudge the child back into a safer position, or when she would swim beneath them to provide brief moments of rest. These weren't the actions of an animal acting on instinct alone. This was conscious, caring behavior that required both intelligence and emotional understanding. As word of their findings spread through the scientific community, more researchers began arriving at the center to study the data. Each new analysis revealed additional layers of complexity in the dolphin's rescue operation. It was becoming clear that this event wasn't just a lucky coincidence. It was a coordinated effort that would forever change our understanding of dolphin intelligence and their relationship with humans. The story of the dolphin rescue spread across the globe like wildfire. News channels worldwide picked up the footage captured by the research team, and social media exploded with millions of shares and comments. People couldn't get enough of the incredible footage showing the Guardian and her pod protecting the child in those vast ocean waters. A popular morning show host wiped tears from her eyes after watching the underwater footage. In a world where we often focus on what divides us, she told her audience, this remarkable story reminds us of the extraordinary connections possible between different species. Her words resonated with viewers around the world, who found themselves deeply moved by the dolphin's display of intelligence and compassion. The research team's phone hadn't stopped ringing since the story broke. Documentary filmmakers, marine protection organizations, and leading scientists from every continent wanted to learn more. The team shared their findings openly, knowing that this event could help change how humans view and treat these remarkable marine mammals. What strikes me most, the lead researcher explained during a widely watched television interview, is how this challenges everything we thought we knew about dolphin intelligence. She played a clip of the underwater recordings, showing how the pod coordinated their movements. Look at how they work together, how they'd problem solve. This isn't just instinct, this is sophisticated thinking and planning. The story particularly touched the hearts of parents worldwide. Many shared their own experiences of their children's fascination with dolphins, but now these stories took on new meaning. "My daughter always said dolphins were special," one mother wrote in a viral social media post. Now we know just how right she was. These aren't just beautiful creatures, they're intelligent beings capable of extraordinary compassion. Schools began incorporating the event into their lessons. Children learned about marine biology through the lens of this incredible rescue, sparking a new generation's interest in ocean conservation. Teachers reported that students were especially moved by the recordings of the dolphin's protective behavior, asking thoughtful questions about animal intelligence and emotions. Marine conservation groups saw a surge in support. People who had never given much thought to ocean protection were suddenly paying attention. The footage of the Guardian's gentle but determined protection of the child had struck a chord that decades of traditional conservation messages hadn't reached. The scientific community underwent a significant shift in thinking. Research papers examining dolphin intelligence and emotional capacity began referring to the Guardian event as a turning point in our understanding. Universities adjusted their marine biology programs to include more studies on dolphin social behavior and interspecies communication. Professional rescue organizations started reviewing their protocols, incorporating new understanding about how dolphins might interact with humans in distress. "We've always known dolphins sometimes help humans," a veteran Coast Guard officer explained, "but now we have clear evidence of how sophisticated their help can be. It changes how we think about ocean rescues." Local fishing communities, who had always had a special relationship with dolphins, shared their own stories that had previously been dismissed as mere tales. A retired fisherman's account of dolphins guiding his boat through dangerous waters during a storm was no longer met with skepticism. People were finally ready to listen and believe. The impact reached beyond scientific and educational circles. Artists created paintings and sculptures celebrating the rescue, poets wrote verses about the connection between species, and musicians composed songs inspired by the recordings of the dolphin's calls. The story had touched something deep in the human spirit, a reminder that intelligence and compassion know no species boundaries. Perhaps most significantly, lawmakers and environmental protection agencies began paying more attention to ocean conservation. The story of the Guardian and her pod provided compelling evidence for the need to protect marine habitats and the remarkable creatures living in them. New regulations were proposed to create additional marine sanctuaries and limit harmful fishing practices in dolphin habitats. In the months that followed the extraordinary rescue, something unexpected happened along the Western Australian coast. The Guardian and her pod, who typically migrated to warmer waters during this season, chose to stay in the area. It was as if they had formed a special connection to this stretch of coastline and the people who lived there. The young survivor, now fully recovered, began visiting the research center regularly with their family. The most heart-touching moments came when they would go out on the observation boat. The moment the child's voice carried across the water, the Guardian would appear, swimming closer to the vessel with a series of unique whistles that the researchers had never recorded before. "It's like they remember each other," the lead researcher explained to a documentary crew filming the reunions. These whistles are completely different from their usual communication patterns. They're special calls, used only when our young friend is here. The footage of these meetings, showing the child safely watching from the boat while the guardian performed graceful leaps nearby, touched hearts worldwide. The research team discovered something remarkable during these visits. The guardian would often bring members of her pod closer to the boat, especially the younger dolphins. It was almost as if she was teaching them about positive interactions with humans. The scientists documented how the pod's behavior during these encounters showed signs of deliberate, gentle curiosity, a stark contrast to their usual cautious distance from boats. Local fishermen reported their own heartwarming experiences. The pod began acting as unofficial guides, occasionally leading boats away from dangerous reefs during storms or indicating areas rich with fish. One elderly fisherman, his eyes tearing up as he shared his story, described how the guardian's pod had surrounded his small boat during a sudden squall, helping him navigate back to safer waters. The child's family noticed profound changes in their young one. The traumatic experience, instead of causing fear, had sparked a deep passion for marine life. The child began studying everything they could about dolphins, starting a school project that encouraged classmates to learn about ocean conservation. Their first-hand experience added a powerful personal touch to the message of protecting marine life. The research center developed a special program allowing small groups of children to learn about dolphins from a safe distance. The guardian's pod seemed to understand the educational nature of these visits, often approaching the observation area and demonstrating their natural behaviors. These encounters helped create a new generation of ocean advocates, with many young visitors promising to become marine biologists themselves. Scientists continue to make fascinating discoveries about the pod's behavior. The guardian's unique whistles when greeting the child were recorded and analyzed, revealing complex patterns that suggested emotional memory, something that had never been documented so clearly in dolphins before. These findings opened new avenues of research into dolphin intelligence and emotional capacity. Perhaps the most touching development came during the one-year anniversary of the rescue. The research team organized a small ceremony at sea with the child and their family present. As if sensing the significance of the day, the guardian and her entire pod appeared, creating a beautiful display of jumps and spins around the boat. The underwater microphones picked up a chorus of whistles and clicks that the researchers described as almost celebratory. The child's grandmother, watching from the boat, shared an old saying from her coastal community: "The ocean remembers kindness." The guardian's continued presence and her pod's gentle interactions seemed to prove this wisdom. They had not only saved a life, but had created a lasting bond that transcended the boundaries between species. As the sun set on that anniversary day, the research team reflected on how this single event had changed so many lives. The child was thriving, the pod was teaching scientists new things about dolphin behavior every day, and people worldwide had gained a deeper appreciation for the intelligence and compassion of these remarkable marine mammals. It was a powerful reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary connections happen in the most unexpected ways.